Okay, hi, I'm so sorry. You have a seventh presentation before you drink your glasses of wine. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here. Thanks for Tillich Point. Not actually speaking me, but to give the opportunity of a kind of official public administration among those independent minds of curators and artists. I was indeed asked by some, like, what's the link actually with this conference for the French embassy, and I have a scoop. France is actually a Caribbean country. And so I remind this because actually we tend to forget it here, but we tend to forget it also in Paris. And indeed, when I arrived in Miami 8 months ago, I just realized that well, in spite of the knowledge and expertise that we can find in some museums, like at Paris Museum and the many exhibitions that have been realized, that actually my work as a cultural attaché of promoting culture exchange between France and Florida and the region was basically based actually on exchanges in Paris. So I thought it was a pity and we should focus a little bit more on the region because we have so many talents in the region and reintegrate the French Caribbean into our official French culture programming. So this is why we are planning to have a Caribbean Arts Festival in March 2018. I'm sorry I have a lot of text because it's really hard to show pictures of something which doesn't exist yet. But I'm trying to run through this and tell you a little bit more. So it's an initiative from the Cultural Services in partnership with the France-Florida Foundation for the Arts, which is kind of our private fundraiser in partner since a couple of years. Maybe just a little bit of the history of this project and the origin. So it's based on the Global Caribbean. It's a program which was launched a couple of years ago, which was implemented by the Haitian Cultural Arts Alliance in Miami, curated by Edouard Duval-Carrier. And it was always during Art Basel, and it traveled a little bit in Martinique and France, but it was more in this traditional approach, as we mentioned, in a traditional space, gallery space. So we thought it would be interesting to actually go beyond that traditional space, expand it in other fields, not only visual arts, but also geographically expanding it. The project went by, well, actually started by identifying a couple of challenges, which actually some of you mentioned, kind of underrepresentation of Caribbean artists, obviously the traditional, or I heard from Rosie, the tropicalist approach maybe of the art, but also insufficient communication about the writings, and in particular also the weak integration of French-speaking Caribbean artists, maybe because of the barrier of the language, but maybe also because of geographically a little bit more in south, maybe also because the capital is a little bit far. So the objective of this festival is to really accelerate the career of international career of Caribbean artists by strengthening the ties between the Caribbean and Florida, increasing the dialogue between the Francophone artists and all other artists and institutions, and also use Miami as kind of an international platform at another moment than Art Basel, because during Art Basel, visibility for Caribbean artists is really weak. It's really hard to fight and survive in this very competitive moment. So this is how basically to try to connect all this. I like this map because it's really showing it's not always easy. When you Google Caribbeans, actually, it's either only the islands, or they cut the south or the north. And here we were talking about axis, and which is interesting is you have this axis here, but you have also the axis, I think we shouldn't forget, we don't see it through Aruba, but also the French Caribbeans to Europe. So it's a far-fetched axis. I think it's crossroads. And this leads to our vision of this festival, which is really connecting people, territories, and I think individuals with multiple roots in one whole world. This is why it's called the Festival Tout Monde, and in reference to Edouard Glissant. And the idea is also to try to underline not only what is the heritage of Caribbean art in terms of African heritage, European, etc., but also to maybe turn it around and say what does Caribbean art actually bring to Europe, the Americas, maybe Africa? What do they have to tell? What is their influence the other way around. Because we've heard and listened so much on heritage, I mean, European on the Caribbean art, but let's try to give a little more space for the others. So this may also help us to overcome the traditional approach of Caribbean art by focusing on the contemporary expression. Some examples of French Caribbean art, we mentioned, some of you mentioned them. I would like to mention a few key actors in Guadeloupe and Martinique, mainly because this is where I had a field research recently. So the Fondation Clément in Martinique, and the Memorial Act. So this is the Fondation Clément, so the private institution. It's actually, this building was inaugurated very recently in 2016, and is now really cooperating with the Centre Georges Pompidou in Paris, so major institutions, and if you haven't seen it, you should really see. It's amazing, beyond the rum factory, which is around, and the sculpture park, which is also amazing, with only Caribbean artists. This is the Memorial Act, also a very recent museum. I call it the local Paris Museum, actually, because it's really competitive. And it was inaugurated in 2015, and it has this very particular part of having an approach of historical approach through memory, because it is a memorial on the slavery in history, and then also space for contemporary expression, and a recent excellent exhibition, contemporary art exhibition, just ended 2 weeks ago there. Just to mention, there are also in Guadeloupe and Martinique what we call in France the scènes nationales, national scenes, which is actually official big institutions, places where there's opera, performance, film, all kind of arts, and they have the resources, human and financial resources, actually, to really have a really quality programming. So it's really active, and it's also completing the scenes in Guadeloupe and Martinique in terms of cultural offer. And of course, the private collection, Bernayou from the Fondation Clément, and maybe an echo from a gallery, because it's there, Sora, in Paris, the Galerie Maël, which is focusing on Caribbean art, and is one of the few. Here, we're trying to build a database of those French Caribbean artists. I mean, there are so many, it's not exhaustive, but it gives an idea, and some of you have mentioned them also. I will go through very quickly. I mean, it's in all fields, we're trying to pick and see who we can have in the end. So somebody mentioned Kelly Sinapamarie. So this is her work, Hot Milk, is a photograph installation, which was at the Memorial Act, also the exhibition which just ended. Jean-François Bouclé, an installation at Saatchi Art Gallery in London, which is maybe also echoing Tony Kaplan's work or Guy Gabon's work at the Memorial Act, very, very similar. David Gums was mentioned a couple of times, Jamaican Biennale, but also Davidoff Initiative, the residence in Beijing. Here he is, from St. Martin. Jean-Marc Hunt, so visual artist, but also performing street artist, doing many different kind of performances. This is in Portugal, in Lisbon, in a public space. I would like to mention a few partners of this festival, and I would like also to thank them. So we have different kind of partners. Some are here today. So Paris Art Museum, thank you to Franklin, Tobias, Maria Elena, and Adrienne for the support. I'm really excited about what we're going to be able to do, maybe on lectures and performance. Then the Third Horizon, Jason, yes, I'm excited about how we can work on the film section of this festival together with O Cinema. And also universities with whom we are going to work on different fields for the conference part. Some project leaders in visual arts and music, the Haitian Cultural Arts Alliance. The Young Artist Initiative for the visual production implementation of the exhibition. And also we mentioned a lot residencies. Residencies because Natalie mentioned it, what is left behind. And there will be this an award in the end for a selected artist by the board. Some of the venues, it will be multi-sexual venues. We mentioned the different kind of traditional and non-traditional spaces that we will try to use all through Miami, outside, indoor and outdoor. So when and where is it going to take place? About 4 days in March. Why March? It's end of the Caribbean period in the region, but also it's Francophonie month, so a lot to build on. The main exhibition will be in the design district, and then, as I mentioned, through different aspects. A couple of ideas of the festival program. So we really want to have a musical part of it. I won't go into the details. These are just suggestions. This is not the final program at all. We mentioned processions and performative processions. We really want to have something in the streets, wandering art, to use Claire's expressions, have a really participatory approach of this, and then the visual arts exhibition. A series of conferences, one to explain on collecting contemporary Caribbean art, what it is, how to define it, how to collect it, and maybe also just explain what is Edouard Glissant's Tout Monde. And the film screening, as I mentioned earlier. So it's quite a program. And then a closing performance, and where we would have the Tout Monde Award to the selected artists. And throughout the festival, so different kind of partners can suggest projects which can be really recognized as part of it. And also we will have a Tout Monde Kids program with a few events, workshops with artists, and a more a focus on education. And I'm almost done. So just the calendar, just to give a little idea. So now we're finalizing the process about the board's curatorial team. But the main issue, of course, is fundraising, because it's a public initiative. We're all in the same boat. It's private fundraising. So depending on what we're able to raise for funds, we will be able to do something as I described it, probably more for 2019. Otherwise, we will start with a teaser with a smaller version of this festival in March 2018. And I would love to, anyone is interested can join this adventure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, an amazing job to all 7 presenters for sticking within the time. If you could just get the lights, Caitlin, and just to say a huge thank you to everyone that presented and participated today. I think it's been a great first day, and I think we all deserve a glass of wine. We have food and wine. We have guests from Cayman. About 60 guests are going to be joining us, so sort of same numbers again. Please say hello. Network with them. They're going to have artist tags on them, or name tags. Because we are going to be moving in and outside, do make the most of checking out the National Collection Gallery upstairs. So that's all the kind of a survey of our 50 years of art. And then downstairs is the temporary exhibition. So I will see you at the bar. Thanks, everyone.